Okay, I've actually gone and counted, and this is actually episode number 9.
Woohoo! Lucky number 9.
That many. One more is 10. One less was 8. That was the last one. I was right. I was right.
Well, there you go.
How do I know I was right? Because I counted.
Yeah.
I put a number on each one we've done.
You went back and checked your work.
And damn it, I was right. I love being right.
Yeah.
Being right is great. It's not necessary. I'm wrong all the time. So it's such a rare treat when I am right. So,
you know what's nice is that when you're right, when like you're like, oh man, I thought I was right, and then you question yourself a minute, like, no, I thought that was it, and then you find out, like, yeah, you were thinking right. You were right.
Yeah, that's exactly. I don't know how quite to say this, but right.
Yes.
Okay, so this is episode 9 of A Family of Educators. And I'm Galen Pickett. I'm here in California, working at Cal State University, Long Beach, teaching physics.
And I am Amy Pickett, the younger sibling.
Year and a half. That's cool.
I'll take it. And I teach pre-K in upstate New York. And we're a family of educators.
We are. And, someday we may want to invite all the other educators that are here. I mean, in the extended family, like Mary, Anola. I think we've got cousins that are teachers. Certainly Jenny is a teacher in the Chicago Public Schools.
Dad.
Okay, kind of. He had his chance, but he didn't want to do that.
That's true. He can be the other guy. Administration. Boom, 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 boom.
No. That's a family of administrators, different podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
If we have one person watching, there's going to be no one watching that one except people that have been ordered to watch.
Right, that's right. Administrator? Oh, no.
Okay, sorry, Dad. Whatever.
Yeah.
But you know what's coming from where it's coming from. It's coming from a place that actually doesn't really appreciate administrators that much. So sorry. Yeah, what are you gonna do?
I mean, it's the way it is.
It is. So I think it is pretty clear that we're both really good at our jobs.
Yes.
We are. Yeah. We are. That is, I mean, there's a lot of people that are really good at this job. They don't really talk to other people about it much. And your successes are kind of isolated successes that are just you.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're doing something that is...
Sometimes it's funner to kind of release stress by talking about all of the things that were not successful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of humor in that. So sometimes, you don't really brag about the successes you have, kind of like what you were just saying.
Yeah. That's like, well, for one, how are you even sure that they're successes? And unless you talk to a bunch of people about it and that gets that normalized, you're not even sure that this thing that you do, which is, you think it has some value, but it's a lot of work. You kind of like it. You have no idea that is like a ridiculous success. And you would never know unless you talk to someone else about it and had something to compare against.
Yeah.
So and success for both of us, I think, is not something that's immediate. It's not like kicking a field goal.
Right.
It is something that is for you, it is a decade later. You can see, wow, there's someone in high school that I got started.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I mean, what happens day to day in the classroom or in a Zoom room, I don't really have any way to connect that to the success that my students have had. So how do you know that you're successful? How do you measure success for yourself when you're doing this teaching job? So that's what we want to talk about today. Success.
I gotta go. Bye. No, just kidding.
Well, we're done. Episode 10
Yeah.
next week.
Well, but there's lots of different things that come off of that I think about with success. So certainly when I taught grades that had high stake one-time tests, that was how other people measured my success. And that was hard to grapple with, especially because you would see students that would make 2 years growth, but since it didn't show up as a pass on the 4th grade or the 3rd grade test, no, they didn't make it. No, they have failed. You have failed. So that piece is,
but you had
hard to, it's not going to go away. You can curse at those state tests all you want, but they're not going away.
in a typical grade, you just have, in a typical grade, you've got a kid for 1 year. And then what happens after that? It's someone else in someone else's hands. But you had a different experience with that, didn't you?
I did. And it was, that was probably, I certainly worked very hard those couple of years, and the group of people that I worked with, we held ourselves more accountable to students, but it wasn't just one classroom. It was a cohort of 3 different classrooms. And
there's some sort of overlap between the grades here. So individual.
So I taught 1st grade, and there were 2 other teachers that taught 2nd grade and 3rd grade. And the cohort would, usually if you have Miss Pickett and then 2nd grade, there's 3 2nd grade teachers, and they kind of just get sort of split up across those 3 classes. But we had asked if we could keep the cohorts together so that we could really spend some time and focus, and especially not just with students, but with families. And our whole selling point was you get 3 teachers for 3 years, because 3 teachers are looking out for your child and working with your child and working with you. So I would have them for 1st grade. They'd move on to 2nd grade. We constantly did assessments, and so our classrooms were interchangeable. So if there was anybody in 2nd grade or 3rd grade, and we did have some mobility, so we would get new students in every grade. But if they were reading at a 1st grade level, then they would come to me for a half an hour a day. We had this, it was called Walk to Intervention, which was, really, I don't even know if they still do it because I'm in pre-K, but I think they do. I know they have intervention for sure. And that is where I did see growth and success. And I'm specifically thinking of one student, Sherilyn, sweetest girl. She came into 3rd grade. She tested at a 1st grade reading level, and she was in my room, and she was guessing on short vowel sounds. And I knew exactly where she was coming from, because before I was a reading teacher, that's kind of what I did. And so I worked with her, and she went through a couple months and was out of 1st grade. And then she was in the 2nd grade intervention. And by the end of the year, she was on reading level. But that was the work of 3 different teachers, and being very purposeful and using, and I know people don't like this, but using data to drive our instruction. And data doesn't have to be bad. When it's a high stakes test, it's very frustrating. But if you don't know where somebody is, how can you take them the next step?
Sure. If I wanted to give you directions to get somewhere, and I just said, go east about 4 blocks.
Great. Okay, I'm in New York, and you're
Okay.
east for 4 blocks.
Start at Giordano's on Jackson and go 4 blocks east, and then you'll see the Art Institute. that actually works. Those directions work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, data isn't the end all and be all. And, you know, just I'll give you a saying of a colleague that I've interacted with a lot here, and he's in the science education department, grew up in Iowa. So farms, cows.
Right.
A dairy farmer, if you're a dairy farmer, it doesn't matter how often you weigh your cows. You can weigh your cows 4 times a day, 10 times a day, 20 times a day. Weighing the cows will not make them gain weight.
Right.
You've
Right.
got to feed them. You've got to feed them and then measure their weight to know if you're giving the right feed.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of data is just collected to be collecting data. I have no idea what anyone does with it. And I certainly don't use it for anything. If it never comes back, sometimes it does come back to me packaged up in some sort of bad, you know, juju that just lands on my desk or lands in a department meeting. Look, you people are just not doing your jobs again. Too many people getting DWF grades. Now, that's interesting that you've got not just data, and this is specific idiosyncratic data, observations that you make interacting with a single student over a number of years. And that doesn't have to be systematized. That doesn't have to be put into, you know, statistical significance. You are a clinician who is treating a single individual. And it's not a mystery between, you know, you and the individual reading at grade level. That's kind of like your arm isn't broken anymore. We set it, and then we took the cast off, and you're fine.
Yeah.
So that is the that is a little bit mimicked here in the university. This sort of seeing people for multiple years, and it's not something that happens automatically. It is something that I have to seek out. So I am a tenured full professor, and it is unusual for a tenured full professor to get anywhere near an introductory class, particularly an introductory class that has 150 students in it. But I request that. I seek that out.
Yeah, right.
That's a part of me doing my job well, because in that 150 group set of people, there's going to be 10 or 15 people that I'm going to see 2 years later in a follow-on course that I have talked into majoring in physics from that class. And then I'm going to see them again in the next course. And I will be writing letters of recommendation for them for graduate school. And, you know, some of them are now out and about, you know, staff scientist here, there, professor somewhere. So there is success for an individual that is only measured long-term. And is it really measured? It's not even necessarily measured by, was someone able to go and do what I did? Because, you know, I don't need a kid to validate my life choices. My life choices worked out just fine. I don't need that reassurance. In fact, the sort of biggest success that you know, sort of institutionally happens is I work with someone over that 3 or 4 years, and they decide not to do something that I did, but to do something that they want to do. And if that winds up being teaching high school physics, so in interacting with me and in just, you know, maturing, they discover that they like physics and they like interacting with people. So that means sort of teaching physics is good, and they're kind of interested in people that are becoming adults, because that's the thing that I don't do. I got 4 kids that did that, and that's a problem I don't solve. That's hard.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, so there's the success that you see with the students that you work with. Now, it is also, so the system is set up to have evaluations, right? And, you know, I don't know if, well, personally, I put a lot of weight in them.
So which evaluations are we talking about?
Well, there's the formal observation in the classroom, which
so that is one of your peers watching you teach, making observations and giving
no,
you.
my administrator.
Oh, all right.
doing a
Yeah.
formal observation, writing it up and ranking how I did. And then we have an annual review, I guess. And so there's all of these different scores. And I think what I realized throughout the different jobs that I had is that once I felt comfortable and understood the job I had to do, then I wasn't just sort of, I was looking at this thing that was supposed to guide me and tell me, are you on the right track? Are you on, no, you're way off. And unfortunately in some systems it's definitely skewed. And I think of one of my all-time favorite movies, Shawshank Redemption, when it starts out the beginning of the movie where he's in for, he's up for parole and he's like, oh yes, he's telling them what he thinks they want to hear. Oh yes, I've learned my lesson, and oh yes, I'm rehabilitated. And then you see the stamp, parole denied. So he goes through that throughout the movie. Now it's the end of the movie. And he goes in again and he's just like, you know what? Sign your signs, stamp your forms, but quit wasting my time. Like he's done with it. He's done trying to impress or be successful in your, he's rehabilitated. Yes, he's learned his lesson. He wish he did not do that. He gets it, right? And then of course you see he gets stamped parole.
Yes.
Approved. And it was, so it's funny because I have just sort of in these twilight years of where, I spent a lot of time trying to convince people, no, I am a good teacher. I am. And then I've realized like, it doesn't matter what they think. I'm not trying to impress them. I'm actually working with children and families. And so stamp your stamps, sign your forms, but quit wasting my time.
Well, so in those sorts of evaluations, those evaluations are sort of nominally motivated by giving you feedback so that you can change something.
Wish it was that. Yes, I wish.
Has that ever happened?
Never. I do wish, and it's supposed to be set up where you do the pre-conference, you have the observation. That's for the formal classroom observation, right? And post-conference. I've had yet to have that happen. And I do have to say, I do understand that administration is asked to do more than is actually human possible. I do get that. I don't think it's the administrator's fault. I think it's the actual tool we're using, because I would love to have professional conversations with peers or colleagues or administration about, where I like to grow. You have to have a level
of me.
Yes, right. But that's just, I think that is just kind of an unrealistic pie in the sky, unicorns and rainbows kind of,
Yeah, it's
to have. So now you can talk to and work with different colleagues who have different ideas, and you can sort of, and I've certainly learned a lot, especially in pre-K. I've learned a lot from a few teachers that, just by observing them and asking them questions and just, getting a better feel for not just the curriculum, but what it feels like to be in pre-K, because it feels a lot different to be a teacher in pre-K than to be a teacher in first grade.
Mm-hmm.
And to get comfortable, just being that teacher, and it's even to have that grace period of having, and when I first started out, I had a mentor. Like every teacher, I guess, gets a mentor. So
yeah, that's sort of nominal and state law right now. So in California, anyway, that you
it is
master teacher that you work with.
So, it's again, that was a long time ago. But again, it does take patience with yourself, and then just, you've got to feel the success in yourself to keep going. And and there's always going to be bad days. I mean, you don't know you've been successful unless you can self-reflect on your teaching and recognize where you went wrong, make it better. So then the next time you reflect and go, yeah, that was so much better. That is exactly hitting the mark and
Right.
where you should go. But you're not going to get that if you never reflect on, whoa, we just really shit the bed on that. That was horrible.
That's a nice turn of phrase right there. Okay.
Yeah. It's after hours.
Yeah.
My
I
filter.
think I'll have to mark this one, not for kids.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
well, so
Warning label.
it's those evaluations that you get from an administrator who is doing an observation that is, they are not my impression of what an administrator is looking for, because no administrator's got the right to walk into any of my classrooms. That's a big difference between you and I.
Yeah.
Only a member of my department would have the right to come in and observe one of my classrooms, and only then if I'm up for some performance review for either granting tenure or promotion. Otherwise,
Right.
no one has the right to come into my classroom and observe anything I do. So all of those administrators, in order to really change something, you need someone who is an expert in what's going on in there, with eyes on what's going on. So
Right.
to have an administrator parachute in is having someone who is a novice. I mean, administrators are not, that they do not have anywhere near the sort of classroom experience you and I have got. They've got some.
Yes, and I will say I have definitely seen varying degrees, and you can definitely tell, because that skill transfers. I feel that skill does definitely transfer. If you know the basis of education and what it takes, for teaching and learning to occur, then I do think you can be kind of at any grade level, or,
Well, see, there's the difference between our lines of work right there. No one at my level knows anything about teaching and learning. We know a boatload about chemistry, mathematics, history, but the actual mechanics of how people learn is something that I only picked up as an amateur over these 20 years I've been working.
Yeah.
And kind of by accident, because, I've been paying attention like an idiot.
That is true, because, a lot of resource can be spent on training administrators to have all this knowledge, so they have the knowledge, so they should be able to go into a classroom and observe. And that's the knowledge of, say, the curriculum. But to understand how that works, the human bodies and the day-to-day, just humans interacting and learning and teaching together, it's not as prescribed as, say, a curriculum would be. Should you see the curriculum in the classroom? Absolutely. You should be able to see what's going on, but there's so many, especially in pre-K. I mean, first grade, it was pretty, my administrator could come in and she could tell by my classroom and my lessons and or the work folders that kids had, what was taught, what was learned, what's next. It was very clear. It's not as clear in pre-K, because it's not, you must learn this skill to learn the next skill. It's a lot of experiences and exposures, and the base underline is the social emotional piece.
And so that's something that I expect all along. To be successful as a teacher, you start as people that teach courses to seniors in high school, and then go back from there, 7th grade, 6th grade, 3rd grade.
Right.
The farther you go down in those numbers, the more you have to know about how people learn.
Right.
And
you have to know it is developmentally appropriate
well,
to
which means
the what you know the students that you have in front of you. I saw this one pre-K teacher trying to teach open circuit and closed circuit, and I'm like, is she kidding? I'm like, I'm not what well yeah and it again, it took me a hot minute to realize, you know, what I'm teaching and how I'm teaching it at this level. And it took some time to figure out first grade. I mean, you can't just jump in and be like, okay, I'm going to open the manual and here we go. I'm going to be able to do this. You know, you can't read out of a book. And
so you do need some time to accumulate expertise.
Yeah.
But it's not a surprise to me that you have moved to younger and younger grades in your career, because
Really?
because you need better teachers in the earlier grades. You can get by with someone like me who just sort of knows stuff in the later grades.
True.
Now, the way it would work for me.
But you have more stuff that students have to learn. So your ability to take the knowledge that you have and transfer it and make it important and meaningful to the students that you have, that's a really important teaching skill.
It is.
Throw it all up there and be like, hey, there it is. I taught it, you learn it.
Or you didn't, you get an F, what do I care?
Yeah, or you didn't.
So a lot of my success is piggybacking on what people in universities sort of just throw up their hands and say, we're not getting what we need from the high schools. Like, if only people in the high schools would do their jobs, then we would be just fine. Because then I could just say, on this date, something happened, and that's my history class. And I think it's exactly the opposite is the case. I take advantage of this integrated set of experiences that start in pre-K for some kids and go right up to graduating high school. And they are ready to do anything. Now, not all of them are ready to do the same thing all at the same time. So one of the things that I have to do to be successful in that first class, I don't have to hit social emotional development the way you do in pre-K, but I do have to do sort of professional and soft skill development. And I've got to figure out how to onboard people no matter where they start and make sure at the end of the semester, everyone had a fair experience. They got what they need to go on to the next step.
Yes.
And even more than that, that they liked it, that they liked doing that.
Right, that they were successful. Because if they were successful, they're going to like it.
Exactly. And being successful does not mean just getting an A for doing nothing.
Right.
No one, everyone sees that one coming. So,
Yes.
and
then it's funny because when I have parents ask me, you know, how was their day? Did they have a good day?
A+ day.
I know it's coming from, you know, a caring, loving place. They want to know how are they doing? How are they doing? And first couple of years, I would just say, you know, good or bad. And then I started thinking about, you know, well, first of all, a student that comes to me that, you know, had 3 or 4 different outbursts, big problems that they had to solve, but they worked through them and they got through them and they got through the day. Like, that's a successful, good day. That's why you're here. That's why I'm interacting with you. Someone that comes in and, you know, does everything right and, you know, not a peep. I try and get more out of them because you got to make a mistake to be successful. You know, so I started to think of it differently. Like, you know, possibly a student that drove me crazy and I'm exhausted, they had the best day.
Yeah.
They worked really hard. Maybe I worked with them and that's why I'm exhausted. So that all the emotional work is exhausting. I mean, it's physically just exhausting.
It's all hard. Teaching is just hard work. That's something we said again and again and again.
True. Yeah, it is. It is hard work. And what keeps me coming back and still on my feet is the success.
And so the administrator coming in can't really give you any sense of whether you're being successful or not. They're looking for something else. They're looking, are some accountability measures being met? Because that's what their job is. Their job is not to help, not to help you be a better teacher.
Yeah, that's really important for anybody watching this, the teacher, to understand, especially if they're thinking they're beginning teacher and a couple years in and thinking, it is way more, it's, if you can think that in your head when you have somebody coming in, evaluating you, if you, and you can start to internalize that and realize that it would save a lot of these gray hairs.
Well, and what really makes a lot of difference is to be inducted into a set of professionals, a local set of professionals, colleagues,
Yes.
who are going through the same issues that you are.
Yeah.
And, sort of every classroom is an island to itself, where we all sort of do our own things. That's one way to do it, but that's leaving a mechanism for success on the table. Because it's, as you said right at the beginning, it's your colleagues that have the closest idea about how good a job you're doing and can give you, maybe you just implicitly even like, man, that was a cool idea. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I don't need to see 4 pages of data and a regression. I know as a professional, that was a good idea.
Yeah.
And some of this is a little anecdotal, whatever, but that's a part of what being a professional is.
And right. And it is easier hearing it from a colleague and I'm thinking of one teacher in particular. It's why I learned so much from her in pre-K, is because, she would give me the other side of a way I was looking at something. Not so much devil's advocate, but just say, well, this is how I saw it. And it would trigger me to think and reflect, but in a trustful way where I didn't, she was trying to catch me doing something wrong. She was invested in me doing well. She wanted to see me do well. So I just definitely could tell, or got the sense that, this isn't to be an I gotcha. It was to just sort of open my thinking a little bit more on the subject. So,
and this is a phrase
more from colleagues,
but there has to be kind of a safe space for that to happen out of the view of the people who can bring the hammer down.
Yes, which is very, very hard to find. It's not it has, let me put it this way. It hasn't been my experience to find a lot of those safe places. Mm-hmm. It's been more my experience. If I ask a question for clarification or understanding, I am being like negative, like I don't believe in it, or pushing back. And that's really not my intention. My intention is, I need some clarification. I see it this way. I'm asking a question. And that's why this teacher that I work with, she was just so good at not giving me the answer, but, kind of just having that conversation, and totally felt safe to.
And so no one is great at this job. No one is successful at this job by themselves. There is overlapping people coming from, before, and you overlap with people that are coming, coming up. It's not, I'm the emperor of my classroom. You all get out. None of your business what I'm doing. You can do your standardized tests, but other than that, these walls are, my walls. Get out.
Yeah.
I know it sounds funny even to say it that way.
Yeah.
But I think some of this can be kind of an isolating profession if you don't find that way to learn from your peers. And this is not something that you're going to get rewarded for in a raise for professional development or something like that. It's the informal, it's the informal peer-to-peer stuff that happens.
Yeah.
And it should really be rewarded, because that is kind of where the art gets handed on. There's a lot of technique that you learn. It is a profession, so there's a set of standards, set of
Yes.
practices, protocols that you know, but there's also a bit of apprenticeship that goes on.
Yes.
It's stuff that's handed on from individual to individual.
Yes. I totally agree. Like if I had never met another teacher and I just beamed into my class and I had students beam in and be out and I just never met anybody else, I absolutely not would be, I would absolutely not be
Well, under those
of
circumstances,
a teacher.
the only measure of success is who gets what on the standardized test,
Right, right.
which is kind of what the administrators are left with, because
They
they
are.
do just beam in, they beam out. They can't see, the actual development.
Right, right.
And so there's a bit of personal success there. So it's not just that, yeah, it's that I'm doing a good job. There is, and I'll tell you, when I was my first day in graduate school, actually 7 days before my first day in graduate school as a graduate student, there was a week of here's how you teach seminar. So that was my entire formal instruction on how to teach was 3 hours a day for 5 days before I started taking graduate classes myself in physics, not in education.
Right.
But the first thing that this is Bruce Weinstein. This is a very good particle physicist at Chicago. He was in charge of training the graduate students running that seminar. And we're all, we all come from blue ribbon undergraduate backgrounds. We're all sitting there wondering who's going to be Einstein for this generation, who's going to be the next Nobel Prize winner. Because we're here at the University of Chicago and these guys are really good and we're going to.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, the University of Chicago is okay, but our reputation, the reputation of this department, it's not mine. This university, its reputation entirely resides in what you do after you leave us. It's what our students are capable of doing is where our reputation comes from. And that was just that was something I was not ready to hear. I mean, I heard it, I understood it immediately. It made a big impression, but that was not what I heard. I mean, that was not what I expected at all.
Yeah, of course.
But that is kind of the way I mean, there are things that I do well. Cool, I'm good at doing some things. But if the people I interact with weren't able to go on and do great things themselves, then yeah, maybe, I mean, I'm doing an okay job, but that's not what the success in the job really comes from. And that is something that only appears years after the fact. So there's a little bit of kind of like stubborn, yeah, of course I'm great. I just have to wait 6 years to find out exactly why, but I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing now. I keep track of the day to day, but and that kind of success, I mean, it really snuck up on me. So, you just do a good job as, I'm teaching this lesson today, and then I'm teaching this next lesson tomorrow, and I do that for 15 weeks, do it for another 15 weeks, and I keep doing that. And then I look up and, hey, how did my department wind up as, the department that has got the most minority students earning physics degrees in the last 3 years? How did that happen? We're just here doing our jobs. That's the long term, and that's some data that, frankly is, I mean, that is bean counting, but it's bean counting that just adds another dimension to, you're doing important work here, and you better pull up your socks and make sure you keep doing that good work. You can't slack off now.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is a little different for me because each grade is a whole new year. And, for me to look at a 6th grader that I had in pre-K, it's a little different.
Oh yeah.
Why I liked that family model with the cohorts. And I actually tried to do that with a 3-year-old classroom, where we tried it. We made a presentation, but it didn't go anywhere. But we were willing to take on the 36 students for 2 years. And those 3-year-olds were they going to come into my 4-year-old classroom. And we were going to work on that same, the thing that was going to connect us together was the social emotional piece and the problem solving, the conflict resolution. So we could really see that, no, if you actually do this, kids learn how to problem solve and to have, conflict resolution in their back pocket to know how to solve their conflicts, whether it be internal or with somebody else. And then part of the plan was then to hook up with a kindergarten teacher. So we could just, here you go. Here's at least 18 kids that really are going to, trust me when I say, they're going to be ahead of the game, because they already know how to resolve the conflicts that come at you when you are interacting with people, and they can get to learning all the curriculum that now you are going to be stressed out to teach. So that is why I kind of like that, that loop. And I also with pre-K have success with parents, which is nice. Which is definitely different. But, from an experience that you would have, but it is very rewarding, even to have parents, maybe, we don't agree on something, but to be able to understand one another and to just have a conversation. To me, that's a success.
Yeah.
Having a good, respectful year with your child's first school teacher, not their first, because you're their first teacher and that should be respected for sure. But just starting that foundation. And when I have parents feel that at the end of the year, that is a success too. So that is something, because I do have parents that will come back. I mean, I do have students that come back, but I think I made an emotional connection with them, so I guess that is a success.
Oh, and we should be clear here that it's not like, so the success that you've had in your career and the successes that I've had in my career are not because we've cherry-picked students somehow. Like, you have collected together the most mature, the most, all the 4th graders that have live in a detached house with 2 parents and a
as a matter of fact, there's an argument for I would get students that maybe needed a little extra support, because that's what happens is actually rooms kind of get chucked up.
And I don't get to cherry pick students who have got 4 AP tests and are super prepared. I mean, the successes we've had, they stack up to, I think the most impressive sort of instructional successes that someone would have in a private school, in a private university, top tier, whatever, private academy, where you're paying through the nose for pre-K through pre-K through 12 education. And it is precisely many of the things that we do are definitely required at those levels. Students, so it's not that we're succeeding despite the fact that we have students that are not quite prepared to do this. We're succeeding because of that.
I do think I am a better suited teacher for students that are, struggling or maybe some of their strategies for social emotional are underdeveloped just because they haven't had those experiences on how to do that. I do think that is where I become the best teacher.
And, you know, people
There is that.
continually, at least at my level, it's, people can't do math, throw up your hands. Why am I even talking to you people? No, those are exactly the people who have been they've been convinced through some bad experiences that they're not as good at math as they think. And it's my job to give them a track record of success.
Yes.
I think we talked about this with Brendan, throwing baseballs at a kid, you know, not at a kid, but over a plate. When you figure out where
well,
to
maybe
put
a
the
few
ball,
out of good.
when you figure out where to put the ball so the kid can hit it, that takes some skill. It takes a lot of skill to realize that that's what you should be doing. And what it really kind of requires was that Brendan was a kid. He overperformed as an athlete, right? He was great as an athlete. I mean, there's almost nothing you give him a challenge, he does it.
Yeah.
That sensitivity to know that not everyone is like that. Maybe it's something that he learned from dad, because, you know, dad was not a good baseball player. Granddaddy so wanted him to be a pitcher, but he couldn't see anything. Woof. Woof.
Yeah.
Woof.
You heard about the first day he got his new glasses and he ran across the street and they fell out and broke?
Yes. That must have been
I can play baseball. No, you shoot your eye out, kid.
Shoot. That must have been running through his head when he was driving me home from the optometrist with my first pair of glasses on my face. So he's the one who took me to get glasses. And coming home with these things on my face, I'm looking everywhere like wide-eyed. Stop sign, stoplight, pedestrian, bird. There's a world out there. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
I did not break them though.
No, I didn't break mine either. And dad took me to get my first pair of glasses. They were
probably for good reason. We can go into that at some other point when the recording's over.
Yeah.
I remember seeing stars for the first time that night.
Wow.
Just walking outside, looking up and, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We had a telescope in Detroit. I kept pointing at stuff. I don't see nothing. Oh, well, I guess I'm not going to be an astronomer. And look at me now, how successful I am.
Right. You had to have some not success to be successful.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. So part of me being...
I got buckets full of being unsuccessful.
Well, my bucket happened in graduate school when it was not clear to me that I was even going to finish.
Wow.
And that experience is something that I've drawn on ever since, because I know everyone that I'm talking to is going to go through the same thing, or they're going through the same thing.
Yeah.
And climbing your way out of that is not something you do by yourself either.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was successful in school until second grade, which is typical for somebody with a reading problem, because now you can't memorize any more words. Mm-hmm. Congratulations, you have memorized a lot, but you can't memorize anymore. So now you're kind of screwed. And I remember, I mean, that's when I started to just, shall we say, act out a little bit.
Well, I mean, you need some sort of a defense mechanism, some way to feel good about yourself, some way to distract from all that.
And I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't, up until then, things were great. I was plugging right along, no problems, feeling good about school. And then second grade, and it was, I didn't know what was going on. I just knew it was bad. I knew I didn't want to be there. And I can't remember my teacher's name, but she kept it was it Assumption?
Probably. Yeah, Assumption.
Where she kept putting the cold pricklies under my name because I was just earning more and more cold pricklies. And I was like, so I don't care. So she'd draw another one with chalk, right? Instead of a warm fuzzy. I'm like, that's okay. Give me another one. Just keep drawing. You come up here. And then now it's like, now I have no way to save face. And now I'm tunnel vision. And I just want all the cold pricklies I can ever get. And maybe we should bleep that out. I don't want a lot of weird emails. but I totally empathize with a student that now feels caught in an emotional corner and need a way out. And I'm the adult that can give it to them. Am I still holding them accountable? Yes. Do we still have to follow through on what has to be done? Yes. But am I going to give this student, this child, a respectful, humane way to feel okay about making this mistake and then making it right?
Right. Humane is that key word. I keep coming across that in my own, in thinking to myself about, academic physics is kind of a brutal endeavor because it basically says, no matter how much work you want to do, we're going to make you drop everything at the end of 4 years when you're done with college. We're going to make you go to a graduate school that is somewhere else in the country. And you can spend 6 years there doing really hard work. And then maybe you met someone, maybe you started a family, tough. We're going to make you move somewhere else. And you'll be there for 2 years and then somewhere else for 2 years. And if at any point you put anything in front of this sort of thing, then you're not really serious about this and you really should have decided something, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly wrong. That is exactly wrong. There is no part, I mean, doing any kind of research in an academic setting is just ridiculously hard. And there is nothing about making it a brutal experience that makes it any better.
Right.
That makes anyone's lives any better. That
makes the research any more true or not.
Right. It's or there's more of it, or you discover something even cooler. No.
Right.
Making people miserable makes them miserable. That's it.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So focusing, I mean, that's maybe sort of the main message for success is, have I made a humane environment that people can develop in? And
wow,
that really,
wow, you just hit it in like 10 seconds. We've just wasted all these people's time that just watched this whole hour.
Just put it in the comments. Go down to 229. Get the punchline.
No, but that is so it, for real.
Time to stop then. Don't let me screw it up by making some joke that's going to get me fired.
Yeah. Oh boy, already down that path. No, I mean, okay. I say my experiences.
Yeah. Well, in any case, that was number 9. Number 9. The Beatles, Revolution number 9. We'll come back to number 10. Who knows what we'll talk about? Maybe counting. I don't know.
Bye.
Bye.